Good morning. I'm Interim Chief Nelson Mosley with the Wichita Police Department, and today I'd like to outline our ongoing efforts since the community forum at East High on August 28th of 2014. I'd like to take a minute to welcome and thank the following for being here today. Council members Levanta Williams, Janet Miller, and Jeff Longwell, City Manager Robert Layton, NAACP President Kenya Cox, Pastors Junius Dotson, Kevis Harding, and Wade Moore, Mr. Mark McCormick, Kansas African American Museum, as well as State Representative Gail Finney. You all have before you today a detailed letter that I will highlight and hit the high points of that letter, but it's to the residents of the City of Wichita and the Police Department's efforts in building and maintaining relations on public and police relations. What I'd like to do is, in that letter, it is a detailed response, and there's 4 main areas that I would like to address today. At the end of the press conference, I'd like to then open it up for questions for everyone. The 4 points or major themes that I would like to address today are body cameras, crisis intervention training, independent review boards, as well as community policing. First, body cameras. There are a lot of moving parts when you look at deploying body cameras for the Wichita Police Department. This department will be one of the first cities to deploy and have cameras on all patrol officers. What we're doing right now is researching some of the existing larger departments that have body cameras in existence at this point. We're also, we expect to purchase 450 cameras in addition to the 60 cameras we have on hand right now. Again, that is to the tune of approximately $1.5 million. Right now, we've been asked to look internally for funding source. We expect to have an identified funding source by the end of this month. We also anticipate a full implementation of the body cameras by December 31st of 2015. Now, in your packets, you have detailed plan of how that will be. There's 4 phases in which we have identified that we will roll our cameras out by the end of next year. Phase 1 is research and planning. Second phase is purchasing of the equipment. And again, when you talk about purchasing of the equipment, we're at the mercy at sometimes the vendors, because right now a number of agencies around the country are looking for these cameras and trying to purchase as well. So that might also play into when we get these cameras. Phase 3 is training and preparation. When you talk about rolling out 450 cameras in addition to the 60, we have to train our members on the use and how we document each situation. Included in that is we want to hire some clerks also to manage the data. Now, when you talk about a lot of technology of this storage, we had issues even with the 60 cameras that we currently have. But when you expand that storage or that storage cloud, we need someone to manage the request for this information as well as manage the data on a daily basis. So our timeline is realistic based on favorable circumstances. And the last phase is deployment, which I've already covered. We plan to have all cameras deployed by the end of next year. The next area I'd like to cover is crisis intervention training. Since 2012, all of our recruits have received 4 hours of training in CIT. Now basically, in addition to that, they receive communications training on dealing with special populations, as well as behavioral training. There's also a more in-depth 40-hour course put on by the Sedgwick County CIT Council. Now, every year, the Wichita Police Department gets approximately 10 to 15 spots every year. Now, we're working with the CIT Council and ComCare to expand that further to get additional spots. Now, when there's a situation that requires or a CIT officer is requested, we try to get them dispatched if possible. But also remember that our CIT officers have the normal responsibilities of a police officer. So if they are available and they're requested, we will send them. But also, all of our officers are trained in communication and some of the training that I mentioned that our recruit officers receive. We may not be able to get this all CIT training, but we're also looking at all types of training. Now again, the week-long CIT training, we get 10 to 15 slots. We're also exploring other avenues of this type of training for our department members. There's also a first aid mental awareness training that's going on that we're going to also try to roll out to all members of the department. So we continue to believe that mental health training for our departments is valuable, and we'll continue to work in that avenue. Officer-involved shootings. Again, with any case and all situations, we vary on the different type of cases that are presented for us or situations. We strive for transparency during all officer-involved shootings, during, before, during, and after. Right now, if you watch the last officer-involved shooting in which Deputy Chief John Spear outlined, in that particular situation, we had video footage. That was displayed. We also displayed photos of our patrol car, and in that situation, we went through and walked through what we had at the time. Again, we're bound by our policies as well on how we do that, but we're trying to strive to be as transparent and be open as possible. And we've always tried to do that. At the end of the day, with the communication, we also found during the process that we could better our communications with families that were impacted by officer-involved shootings. In fact, in this last situation, we reached out to the family members and have done a better job in that situation and continuing into the future. So we have recognized the need to better in our communication with family members directly impacted, as well as our members on the department with our crisis team. With Independent Review Board. Right now we're working through a process to replace the existing city manager's review board. With citizen input, governmental structure, and research, we plan to look at alternatives in this. We expect to be done with this and have more information with the organizational assessment on this topic. The result we're hoping for will be a new entity that's unique and the best fit for the city of Wichita. Again, that also involves research of other agencies and best practices around the country. Community policing is the next topic I'll hit. In 1994, there were few departments that even had heard of community policing. Today, our organization is trained, and we work daily in partnership with our community and problem solving for the city of Wichita. What we want to do is renew and refocus our efforts on community policing. That means provide training, additional training to our officers, and focus on grassroots of community policing, as well as, you heard a theme of mine, is research best practices throughout the country. Now, because we research that, what is good for one department doesn't mean it's best for the Wichita Police Department. So we'll analyze all the research and bring the best training here for our department. And again, this is a topic in the organizational assessment that will be explored in depth. But what I'd like to add as well is the main function of community policing is the community and police working together. It's not just the police department alone. It's us working together, and that's the focus. I heard during that forum that we didn't want to meet. The citizens did not want one meeting and to be done. They wanted ongoing dialogue with the city of Wichita and specifically the police department, which we're continuing to do. This is one step in that effort of continuing our communication. I'll briefly now hit on the organizational assessment. What is mentioned is this will be a blueprint for the future. It is also will establish criteria for the next police chief. We're also in the process of reviewing policies and procedure for the entire department, and also focus on community and police relationships. Our use of technology, as we mentioned, body cameras, there's other technologies out there we're exploring as a department, But right now, body cameras are at the forefront, and that's a focus of the organizational assessment as well. We expect to have, again, this organizational assessment and the report to City Manager Layton by the end of this year. I happened to attend the meeting last week, and the report in partnership with Wichita State University, everything looked well. It was progressing rather well. Now, looking forward, my purpose here today is to give you a status report and to let you know that since the August 28th Community Forum, there is work still going on behind the scenes. I again heard the citizens of Wichita at that meeting that we have to continue to have ongoing dialogue. We also have sent a few of our representatives to other agencies. For example, in Johnson County, they have an annual meeting with community, police, and talking about their relationships annually. They have breakout sessions which are inclusive of the topics that they're faced with today. We went down and took a look at that as well. I've been working with Sheriff Jeff Easter and talking about how we can bring that here to Wichita and working more on the partnership side. We're also looking at bringing fair and impartial policing training for all members of the police department in 2015. So all of this is to tell you that we have ongoing efforts, and you can see the importance of this with all the stakeholders here with me today. We'll also be announcing rather soon the next public meeting on the topic as well to continue the dialogue that I'm laying out today. Again, this is one piece of the pie. We have to work together, and again, I challenge all members of the City of Wichita to also be involved, and this meeting will include you. So to have your input, we would like all citizens, or as many as possible, to be there to give us input. That meeting will be announced in the near future. And what I would like to do also is to extend an invite to, if there's other additional information, in addition to the detailed letter I provided, or input that you have, please send that to us as well. But the name of this is to keep the open, honest dialogue, building our relationships, and continuing to enhance police and community relations. As I said, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And I think you heard me at the meeting at the No Ferguson Here Community Forum that I said it's all of us together. One piece of that, if the citizens aren't involved and the police are the only ones, it doesn't work. It takes us all. So at this time, I would like to open up for questions.
But Chief, just talk about that meeting, because was that really a turning point for what we were trying to do, and what did that mean to really get us to this point now?
That meeting was instrumental, and as you know, it was on the heels of the Ferguson incident. What it displayed to me, and I took a lot of notes on stage, was a need for that continuing dialogue to keep going. And this is a piece of that, because like I said, it's not just us. We have to have input from our citizens and work together, because we can go and fight crime and go do, but again, we have to do it in partnership. So that was a stepping stone. Now, we have also attended a number of meetings along the way. Our officers attend meetings. We're out there all the time. And I think anyone up here can attest to that our officers do care, and they're out there working hard at meetings. I also have attended numerous meetings, and I'm hearing the same thing. I'm hearing that we want to keep this going. We want open and honest dialogue. We want to work with you. And that's what I like hearing, and that's what I plan to do to keep this going.
Did you say this is going to be one of the first departments of this size or to get this many body cameras?
Yes. Well, let me focus that on the Axon body cameras, because there's a variety of body cameras out there. Some are on the chest that give you this view. We've opted to go with the Axon, which are up at your face level, that gives what the officers are viewing. So that's where we're going, and that's the data fed to us by Axon. In fact, we're meeting with representatives or vendors this week to talk further about how do we get the cameras here and the actual implementation timeline.
So there's going to be a lot of attention on Wichita to see, does this work? To see if it works?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we want, more transparency, and our officers are in favor of having these cameras. And I think you can have in that letter has the union stance as well.
Will it interfere with law enforcement at all to have that kind of equipment on an officer when they're out on a scene?
Not that we've had so far. We have 48 out there now. We've ordered additional 12 for 60, and we've had no issues. We've had to use that documentation to prove an incident as well. We've had to replay it to see exactly what has occurred. So no distraction or officer safety that we've found or that I've heard of.
And what kind of access to the video will people have? At what point would footage from these from this equipment become public or even available to public entities?
Well, the normal requests of Cora and things of that nature, but that's why we need clerks to manage that, the requests that come in, to manage all that information. Because, like you said, when we have all officers, I'm sure that that's going to increase the request for that footage.
And Chief, go ahead.
Oh, are there other officers that are have concern about having this added stress to their daily work, that everything that they're going to be doing is going to be taped?
If there are, I have not heard from them. I mean, I've heard overwhelmingly they're in favor of. Now, at this point, again, what it does is protect the officer also, as well as the citizen. It actually documents that incident. I mean, if there's a question of a he said, she said, we can go to that footage and play that. So from what I've heard, they're in favor of.
Thank you.
And Chief, with the incident in Hutchinson earlier this week, as you saw, they immediately released the video, they released the 911 tapes. I guess your reaction to that, them doing that so quickly?
That was pretty quick, but again, I'm sure they explored that with their district attorney. In the situation that we have, obviously that's part of the investigation. We have to sit down with the district attorney and talk about that release at that point, or when is it feasible to release that footage. So I can't make a comment on that situation, but I know in this situation, if it happened in the city of Wichita, we would explore when we could release that information. And again, this is in the interest of being as transparent as possible.
It sounds like this would give you the opportunity to be more capable of releasing footage in circumstances like that for members of the public who might have questions about what happened. Though.
Yes.
Am I correct about that?
Yes, but again, like I said before, each case is unique, and it's part of that is evidence. That footage is evidence, so we still have to work with the district attorney on when to release that information.
Chief, we got some questions on this side of the room too. I want to remind our media that we have other people here to take your questions as well.
What kind of recommendations have you been getting from residents about this independent review board?
Mr. Manning, you like? What I've received personally, are, comments of, how to better the department, communication. It's no different than the information I receive when I go to the meetings. In fact, I've been invited to a few meetings to talk about some of the things we're doing. They want to hear more of the work we're doing. So I've been getting positive reviews or positive comments on the assessment because, again, it's looking at how we can do business better.
Can we expect to see some regular everyday citizens on this board as well?
On these citizens, it's a work in progress. Again, that's what we said here. It's a work in progress that we're looking at all aspects of it. And that includes the members on that board. So yes, you can expect that we'll look at a total review and it could change. But again, we have to wait till we have the information in hand before we can make any changes or recommendations.
I got the impression from the Ferguson meeting that there was going to be a lot of citizen involvement in this process up to this date, and I kept waiting to hear about maybe there was going to be some community meetings, but it seems like we've done a very lot, or maybe I don't understand, has there been a lot of citizen participation in this review process up to this point? And then I see all these people behind you, but they've been involved in some part of this process. I guess my thought is, where has been the citizen input up to this point other than the Ferguson meeting?
Did you receive a letter that I have? It outlines some of the stakeholders that we've been involved with in there. I think the last. Wichita State has been instrumental. They've looked at it externally and internally. I mean, you look at, they've interviewed a number of our department members as well as citizens that are listed there. And I'll let members speak here if they want to speak specifically, but they've been involved also.
I was gonna ask, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Benita, I'd like to further answer your question, Benita. When we have that community forum at East High, the No Ferguson Here forum, what you have in your hand right now, excuse me, what you have in your hand right now is information that was compiled by that community forum, meaning the citizens of Wichita gave us this information that we took from questions from that forum. We compiled it. It was a lot. And from that information, as a group, who are standing with me, we began to hunt through what is the common themes, what were the common questions and answers that we kept hearing over and over. And we began to discover, number one was body cameras. So we said, let's look at of all that information, because we couldn't grab it all, but of all the information, compiled into themes. And so what we discovered was body cameras, and et cetera, what you have in your hand. That came from us, the citizens, which we then brought it to the police department, gave them time to say how we respond to these questions that we have. And they've been doing that with us. And then so we thought today would be a great time to then say, here's that letter, here's what we're doing in our city, and we continue to work together. Hopefully that answers a little more of that. Yes, we've been involved with the police.
And Bob, can you talk about the funding?
Before I get to that, to just build on Pastor Harding's comments, this is just a progress report. The only thing that is somewhat in concrete is the body camera plan. Everything else is a report back to the community of, we heard these as the major issues, and here are some initial steps we're taking. But a lot of this is going to depend on the results of the organizational assessment. And that assessment, we've hit a number of groups, which is outlined in your press release. And then we also plan on having, in conjunction with the next community meeting, we plan to also provide an opportunity for residents to have input into the assessment as well, and that'll be facilitated by Wichita State. So we'll have, so those who are not picked up by those groups in the press release will have an opportunity to still participate. And that's why we don't have a date yet. We're trying to work with WSU to make sure we have the proper facilitation staff available, and that we have a room that lends itself to that. But we should have something. I'm going to guess that our meeting will be probably shortly after Thanksgiving, before we get into the holiday season, so that we can have meaningful input before the assessment is completed at the end of the year.
Chief, I had a question about how you the body cameras again.
Yeah.
They're not rolling all the time, correct?
We're still in the process of developing the procedures
Okay,
on
that's
when
what
the cameras will be operating.
So if something is happening and the officer is having this run very quickly, you would have to press a button and say, okay, I'm going to start recording them?
Well, I don't want to tell you what's going to be in the policy, because the policy is still being developed. We're looking at what other departments are doing around the country, so that we make sure that it isn't a decision that's made halfway through an incident, for instance. And so, but there'll be strong guidelines, Chief, right, for when a camera is activated before an incident even occurs.
Can you also talk about, we're in the process of hiring a new chief, a lot of changes we're describing here, body cameras being one of them. How will that be used in the hiring process of who will lead this department at some point?
The assessment process is what is going to help us determine what the skill set is necessary for the next chief. That is looking at our strengths and weaknesses, and as the chief said, that will provide a blueprint for the department going forward. And at that point, I think we'll be able to identify the skills necessary to achieve successfully that blueprint. And so we'll have a job description, revised job description for the position after that assessment is completed.
And when are we still looking to hire that person?
The assessment will not be finished until the end of the year. We'll have time for more community discussion of the assessment before we finalize the job description and go out with the recruitment process. So at this point, I don't have a firm time frame. I would imagine in the first quarter of 2015, we'll start the recruitment process. But if the community wants a little more say in that job description, then I'll slow that process down to make sure that all the voices are heard. Right now, I have a lot of confidence in the management team in the department, and So I don't think we are pressed to get this decision made quickly. I think we all want to make sure it's a good decision going forward.
Has there been any consideration of taking the already existing racial profiling advisory board and expanding its powers and letting it serve as the citizens review board? And one other question, in regards to the Hutchinson police shooting, they also released the officer's name, and Wichita never does that. Is there any discussion of possibly changing that policy?
I think I'll answer both of those with the same answer, and that is, right now, everything's under study. I want to hear comments from the follow-up meeting, as well as the information that we get through the assessment process. And then, as the chief noted, we're looking at our policies and procedures right now to determine what changes are warranted. So I'm not sure. One of the things I've said about review board or some review process, I think it's going to be a Wichita solution. I think what will happen is we'll be guided by what has been working in other communities. I do know that we will not have the city manager's review board as it currently exists, but I can't tell you what will be in its place. And I think that will be important, that we get a process that is trusted by the community going forward.
At the No Ferguson.
Can you hold on just a second? Did you have a question?
I asked about the funding.
The funding.
Yes.
Well, at this point, I don't have the firm recommendation for the council to consider. We're looking still at a few options, and as the chief indicated, by the end of the month we should have it narrowed down and have something that the council can consider. Thanks, Dan.
At the No Ferguson here meeting, the mayor had set a goal to have all these body cameras by the end of this year.
Right.
What's the main reason why it's going to take till the end of next year?
Because we want to make sure we have in place the right system to support body cameras. So first of all, as the chief indicated, there is a supply and demand issue, and that is given what's happening around the country and the push for more body cameras, there's just an issue of supply and whether or not we can get enough cameras. But more importantly, I don't want an officer to have a camera without firm guidelines on how that camera is to be used, because I think the residents expect that we're going to follow specific policies and that there are results as the use of those cameras. And nothing would be worse than to not have that framework in place and then have an incident occur and everyone says, gee, the camera, you have a camera and the camera wasn't activated because of some confusion about policy. So there's a training element as well.
Like you said, there hasn't been necessarily something set in stone for where this money is going to come from, but are we expecting there to be cuts, or expecting there to be certain programs that maybe have to pull back some in order to have this stuff funded?
Right. Again, it's probably too early to say, but we don't have $1.5 million that's sitting in reserve that we can simply say will divert to cameras. So the reason it's taking so long is we're looking at our current programs to determine where could we make some changes in order to be able to find the capital cost as well as the annual operating cost or revenue to support the camera operation.
A while back, you and I had discussed using forfeiture funds to fund cameras, and you had informed me that they're not able to do that because it's an already budgeted item. As we're making the next budget, can we not make it a budgeted item and then just simply use forfeiture funds, or is it not that simple?
Again, I'll try to resist as many backdoor questions about how I'm going to fund it. Everything's on the table right now. We're trying to narrow the options. Again, there are many other people here that...
I think this question was kind of asked before, maybe to the acting police chief, but I'm going to ask it to you. You know, this reflects a very major look at a change of culture, it seems like to me, is what I'm seeing out of this within the department. A very major assessment at minimum that you all have said. You know, from the Ferguson workshop or committee meeting, were you shocked by what you heard? What made this all of a sudden a time to make a major change in the department on your behalf? I mean, I don't know if anyone seemed to even recognize that we had a problem before that. Now all of a sudden we have a major problem. We're totally reassessing the department. And I guess that's the question, why? Where is this coming from? Is the meeting part of that or what?
Well, I don't know that anyone has said we had this major problem that has to be addressed. I won't buy into necessarily that part of the question, but what I will say is we have a transition in leadership in the department, and that, I think, coupled with some of the things we heard at the East High meeting, said, okay, this is a good time to step back, look at what we do well, look at where we have some room for improvement, and then use all of that information to determine next steps for the hiring of a chief. So it just seemed like a right time for us to do this assessment. And as we asked people through the assessment process what their thoughts are about the department, we're getting a lot of positives as well as concerns being expressed. And we're trying to put that all together to get a really strong profile for the police department going forward.
Why are body cameras such a priority for Wichita if it's going to be one of the first departments that have such a large number of them? Why is it such a priority here and not other places?
I think it's a tangible way of trying to build trust in what we do as a department and as a community. And you take away a lot of the questioning and doubt when an incident is captured on film. And I think that's an important part of our strategy going forward in terms of building credibility and trust with the community.
We'll take a few more questions.
Is anyone else that was, I guess, on the board, whether from NAACP representation, do any of you guys have something that you want to say? I mean, obviously, the community is who we really need to be hearing from.
Pastor Dotson, I do want to say, this is kind of following up to Benita's question. I think the Ferguson issue highlighted the opportunity for there to be dialogue, not only in the city of Wichita, but really all across the nation. And so I think our people, our community, were just taking advantage of that opportunity to come together. And there was such a cross-section of our community that came together to discuss these critical issues. And I think that's part of the forward momentum that we're now seeing within the city. I commend our mayor, our city manager, the police chief. I mean, they've all come to the table, and they're all really positive about making some positive changes and about moving in a good direction. The result of the conversation at the East High School meeting was this, that people said, we don't want to have another meeting where nothing happens. So even before we have another meeting, let's make sure that we can at least announce that we're making progress on some significant issues. And that's why this statement comes out to say these are the 4 things that we are significantly advancing on. And that's a result not only of our city leadership, but also as a result of all of the stakeholders that you see standing here.
We also, as organizations and as community representatives, we also made some commitments not only to the city of Wichita, but to each other and to our organizations to work together to support the initiatives and the concerns to make sure that we were communicating well with one another. We're not today seeing this as a road, an end. We see this as a progression in the steps as we move forward. We celebrate the chief, the city manager on their willingness to work with us. We have been meeting behind the scenes. We've attended numerous trainings. We've met with the district attorney. We've met with we've met with the district attorney, we've met with our attorney general, we've met with the city council members. We also took some training for fair and impartial police training. We also have been meeting with other community members across the state of Kansas because the problems that we have been experiencing in our community are not just local to our community, they're systemic. Unfortunately, a lot of the problems that we have been experiencing has been because there has been a breach in trust and confidence that the community has had with our police department. So having the opportunity to remove those silos and to start to communicate, their willingness to give us the opportunity to come in, to review their process, to have community input and buy-in, and to be able to say, this is what we want to see, and then to have that come out, I believe that that will take us a long way in mending the breaches of trust and confidence that the community has had for a long time. The one thing that we were really excited about was the additional training that the officers will be receiving as it relates to individuals with mental health concerns, because that has been a huge issue. And so moving forward, we know that having a well-trained police department will help, again, to rectify some of the issues we've had. So,
What have been some of the thoughts that people that we've spoken to have about the independent review board?
most of the thoughts that the people that we've spoken to before the forum, after the forum, has been that they really want some input in this, and they don't really want it to be a WPD-led initiative. They want it to be separate so that they feel like it can be trusted. We are looking at how we can begin to kind of have maybe a little bit of the both worlds. We don't want people to feel like, and I'm in agreement with this, that the hen, or how do you say it, the rooster is guarding the hen house. Okay, all right, that's right. So we don't want it to be like that, but we also know that there are some legal things and some other issues that have to go on. So we're looking at other organizations, other states. Our national organization has also been involved, and we've been in communication with them. There's a couple of other, and I don't see Pastor Ruben Eccles, he's not here today, but his organization, Sunflower, they've also been involved in the conversation. So we have lots of individuals that are having input. Thank you.
And Chief, you say FOP is on board with all this? You didn't have any problems selling unit on this?
No, and that statement is also in the release as well. It's been positive.
Wasn't there a little pushback in the very beginning?
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, again, I've talked to President Zamorano, and they're on board with the cameras.
The whole incident with the, I don't know, it wasn't really a lawsuit, but
There was a
those
grievance
12
filed by
officers.
13 officers who didn't want to wear
There's,
cameras.
yeah, it's another topic as well, but yes,
overall,
that,
FOP.
yes, that was the perception that maybe that came from that other incident, but, yeah, but I've been in discussions with President Zamorano, and they're on board.
We got a pretty good representation of speakers. Anyone from the council want to make a comment?
I think one of the comments that I'd like to say is that I hear that maybe there are some community members whose voices are not heard. I think we're all open to hearing from anyone in the community who has a concern. We had a meeting just last week about a neighborhood association area. Chief Mosley was available for that meeting. So I think I would like for the community to understand that the decisions that are being made are not made by just a handful of people, and that if there are concerns or if there are questions and if there are meetings that we need to be attending, please don't hesitate to let us know, because it's everybody's community and everybody should have a decision. I'm very excited and looking forward to the comprehension review. I am excited to see where we can take Wichita and our WPD, as well as our community working together. So if there are community members that have a need for us to attend a meeting, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us.
I would just like to add that, as you can see, or as you've heard this morning, this is a work in progress. This was not intended to come and answer every question that was raised. There was some desire on the part probably of staff to have it a little further along before we announced it. But some of us, Dr. Harding and I in particular, after a meeting last week, really pushed to update the public on where we were. And there's some risk, because you stand up here and you say, well, we don't know the answer yet to that. We don't know, we're working on it. And so I don't want you to come away thinking that we don't know the answers to everything. I mean, we don't, but we thought it was very important to provide this update so the public and you all here understand that there is work going on, and that it's not only going to be done by the people that you see here. We are going to further engage the community, and that process is ongoing. It seemed imperative that we let folks know, because from the public's point of view, it probably looked like from August to November they hadn't heard anything. And we didn't want that impression to continue. So what you see here today certainly is a work in progress that is going to continue over some weeks and definitely months throughout 2015.
The last meeting was pretty packed. Is there any ideas of maybe a bigger venue for the next meeting to be able to incorporate more people? Yes.
Can you say that at the microphone?
Yes.
I think one of the things that we can say as a team that cannot be refuted is that we've always put a high priority on public safety from this council, this city manager, and this community. It shows in the budgets that we have put together over the last even 10 years. Even in years of declining budgets, we've always placed a high priority on public safety, and we've found the dollars that it's going to take to make sure that we can do the best job that we can do. And that's what we will continue to do with regards of public safety and placing that high priority. What you're now hearing is the simple fact that we also understand the perception that the public has in terms of making sure that we are as transparent as possible. And so by reaching out to the community, by seizing these opportunities that we have done through a variety of national incidents that are happening, we're going to ensure that we also can be as transparent as we can possibly be. And that's why we're very methodical in developing the procedures that are going to become part of our everyday practice.
I hear a lot of talking about national issues that have led to, these meetings and this transition. But aren't there a lot of local issues as well with Brady Giglio officers, with the former chief having been a Brady Giglio officer, and even with more recently with Officer Randy Williamson, who has the DA's decided not to justify his shooting, which is a first for Wichita. How have these, we'll say, issues within the department factored into what's happening now?
And the chief come up and wrap it up.
Again, on the specifics, just like we said, on the Williamson, he's no longer employed here, so I can't make any further comments. What you're hearing is this is not done. We're doing this organizational assessment and looking on improving things. Yes, you bring up some points, but at the same time, what this is a work in progress.
I'm just asking, are those factors that are being...
Everything's on the table, as you heard the city manager say. Everything's on the table.